In this video, we have a ton to talk about. Really eclectic mix today on the channel. We're talking Elon Musk telling Bob Iger to go F himself. We're talking about Zootopia over there in Hong Kong. We got all kinds of that. We're talking about the board. We're talking Nelson Peltz. We're talking about that new Walt Disney statue over at Epcot. Just a ton of stuff today. We have an amazing panel. We got Slimer and we got Citrus George the Italiano up next on OG 55 Live. Welcome aboard, everybody, to another episode of OG 55. We have a fantastic panel tonight. We have down below Slimer, the one and only Slimer, who now has social media. He is on Twitter X. Slimer, thank you so much for coming on, brother.
Hey, thanks for inviting me. Appreciate it. It's always good to be here.
Yeah, it's always a good time. Slimer, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at SlimeSquare84. Go ahead and find me. And I mainly pick Ghostbuster posts, but if you like Ghostbusters, that's always a good thing. And you'll see some OG 55 stuff on there too.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, make sure you give him a follow on Twitter X. And oh wow, there goes my camera. All right, and then we got the Italiano, Citrus George. Welcome back, brother.
Thanks for having me back on. Can't wait to dive into all this Disney news. A lot's going on this past week. Just a little bit of everything. It's like, we were planning on doing a Citrus Corner, and it was like, there's just so much going on. We gotta do an original OG 55 show here with all this news. But if you'd like to find me on social media, you could do so on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. Let's rock and roll, boys. So, first story. First story is Elon Musk. It says here, this is from Culture Crave. Elon Musk responds to Bob Iger and other advertisers who have stopped spending on Twitter. Quote, go F yourself. Okay. Now he was at some conference. I think it was like some CNBC thing or something like that. And he was interviewed there. And that's where he kind of went on this little bit of a tirade. I don't want to play the video. I don't know if it's like, if it'll like copyright us or not, but I think Bob Iger was in the audience and he tells him like, hey, you can go F yourself, Bob. And I'm like, okay.
He's definitely not going to be renewing his magic key.
Yeah, right. No, exactly. Okay, real quick, and then I'll go to you, George. Okay, yes. This is just my overall thoughts on this. This was a bad movie, Lon. Yeah, Twitter is kind of on the like, Twitter's kind of struggling right now financially, and it has been even before Elon took over. Obviously, these companies, big companies. I mean, we're talking Disney, Comcast. There's a whole line of them. Not spending money is bad financially for Twitter. So when you go out there and you present yourself like that and you're F you know what? It might be that surge of like, yeah, I'm a badass at the moment. But believe me, he walked away going, what did I just do? It's kind of like, if you have a job and you're in your office and you walk over to your boss and you tell your boss like, hey, fuck you. And you walk out, you have that moment of like badassery. Like, yeah, look what I just did. But then when you get to your car, the reality sets in. Oh, yeah. Shit. What did I do?
And Elon might have felt that within himself. But even just when I saw it like right at the moment, I thought, what a dick move. Because you also have to go back as to why these companies pulled their ads in the first place. So when he ends up saying fuck you to Bob Iger, where he was only saying fuck you to Bob Iger, not these other companies. So again, singling out Disney once again. But again, what you had said, OG, he probably just singled out Bob because if he was in the audience, it was like, okay, I'll take my opportunity and say it directly to his face. But when you then make a statement like that as to why these companies pulled their ads in the first place, that's kind of making you look like, and I'm not saying he is or not, but it's like he's kind of backing up those remarks as to why they pulled those ads. So rather than say, you know what, I can appreciate and understand why these companies pulled out of their ad campaigns on X, we're doing our best to fix it. Hopefully, you know, we can get them to come back for, you know, for the collaboration between the companies and X and what have you. That's being a person who knows how to run either a company or what have you or something. But when you just blatantly sit there and you're like, fuck you, fuck you. I mean, the interviewer didn't know how to respond. He didn't know what to say. He was like shocked to high heaven and low hell.
You could tell the interviewer, the poor guy, he was like secondhand embarrassed almost.
He was.
Like, you can feel it.
He was embarrassed. He was uncomfortable. It was just. It's like these big wig type people. It's like they don't care anymore. They don't show no sophistication. They show no leadership qualities. They show no way of even just downright respect. It's like, and then how do we as a community, as people, how they want us to respect them back when they're behaving like children? It's like I don't get it.
Yeah,
and I'm sorry, that was a bad move on Musk's part.
It was. Well, it was a bad move because you need these advertisers. He even said it. He said that the company could go down because of the pullout. And so you need them, Elon. And so now you're going to give them all the middle finger. What's that going to get you? I mean, that's crazy. Slimer, what are your thoughts on this, brother?
My thoughts are that their egos have gone too big for their own britches, and they're willing to burn down the entire bill. I mean, this is a classic situation of, you know, cut off your nose to spite your face. And I really don't even know why. Okay. I mean, the thing is he was, you know, Disney wasn't the only company to suspend or remove their advertising. I mean, you had Paramount Global, you had Apple, IBM, Lionsgate, I believe Universal pulled their advertising as well. You know, so for him to single out the Disney company, I mean, I understand that, you know, Disney's got a big target on their back right now. That's probably why he did it. Plus, it doesn't help that Bob Iger wasn't in there, so he just saw it as an opportunity to take, you know, to add an extra dig. But you're right. I mean, it's like cool guy points. I mean, I feel like I'm, you know, are we watching Maury Povich, or are we watching? I feel like this is like the degradation of the highest level of society that we're witnessing. I mean, you know, this is Elon Musk we're talking about, and Bob Iger, and honestly, you know, I know we're going to switch to Bob Iger and things that he said at the town hall meeting shortly here, but you know, it just seems to me like, if you don't have anything good to say, you know, as your mom says, as our parents once told us, if you don't have anything good to say, then don't say anything at all. That rule still stands. I don't care how much money you have, or if you're the CEO of the Walt Disney Company. You know, that's still applicable. I'd say it's more applicable in their cases because the things that they say are much more inflammatory. Now it's started this, you know, boycott campaign on Twitter. You know, I just go to Google Trends and look at how many people have looked up you know, Bob Iger and, you know, cancel Disney, and now it's turned into this, you know, fad of the day to cancel Disney Plus because Elon Musk, you know, said fuck Disney. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, and you know, the thing is in OG, you know, you had sent me a DM about this earlier. It's so hypocritical too, man, because, you know, one side, the people that are canceling Disney, trying to force them to renew their advertisements on X, they'll also tell you simultaneously in the other side of their mouths that no, you know, this is a free country and you get to choose where you invest your money. And so, like, well, you know, which one is it? You know, you have to pick a side here. You can't have your cake and eat it too. Can we spend our money as where we want because it's our money? Or are you going to try to strong arm a company into renewing their advertisements with Elon Musk because, you know, because he says something controversial on television, only later to regret it? And oh, by the way, he might sink the entire ship in doing so.
Oh yeah, no, 100% Slimer, and you're right. There is a lot of that double speak, right? I've been talking about this a long time, where you see a lot of this, like you know, you have people out there, like, you know, talking about how, you know, how Disney is the focus of the culture war because they're the biggest game in town, basically, right? So we have to focus on the Mouse House, but then they turn around on the other side, like they speak out the other side of their mouth, like you say, Slimer, and they're going on and on about how irrelevant Disney is now. Their movies are flopping. Their theme parks, nobody's there. It's like, well, what is it? Is it is it the center of the culture war because they're so relevant, or are they irrelevant? You got to pick. That's the problem I have with a lot of this stuff. Is like it's very goalposty. It's like, you know, we're going to move it around. You know, you can vote with your wallet, but apparently these big companies can't vote with their wallet. And the free market's great, except when the free market hurts someone we like Elon, and it's not so great. It's like, come on, everybody. You got to have a little consistency here, you know? It's crazy. And what happened to all these other companies? There's like Slimer, you mentioned, there's like IBM, Comcast, all these other companies. It's only Disney you're trying to boycott?
That's what I was saying. Why was it only fuck you to Disney and Bob Iger? It was like nothing else was ever mentioned. And so it's like it's no matter what goes on, Disney is always in the crossfires of everything. But there could be 10 other companies that are doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter.
Yeah, basically every telemarketing company pulled their advertisements from Twitter. Like every single one. I mean, we just named a few, but I think like you said, it's Comcast, Universal, IBM. I mean, Apple. They all pulled their ads.
Right. And the irony of this is that they're actually tweeting about boycotting Disney on their Apple phone. It's like, come on, it's laughable. It's absolutely laughable, you know. Yeah. So we'll see. But speaking of Bob Iger, we got a lot of Bob Iger. Bob Iger has been making a lot of news lately, a lot of waves, man. He's ruffling more kind. No, not at all. He's ruffling more feathers than Jose in the Tiki Room. I'd tell you that. All right, let's. It says here, Bob Iger says Disney needs to entertain and not message audiences in too many sequels. So it says here, Bob Iger says creators at Disney have lost sight of what their job should be. Entertain first, not messages. He adds that stories infused with, quote, positive messages for the world, end quote, can be great, but it shouldn't be the primary job. And this is from Sherman of CNBC. So here's the thing this is the thing that kind of frustrates me a little bit. A lot of people are kind of getting on Bob Iger for this comment, right? This has been a thing that the conservative side of our society have been complaining about for a long time now. Disney is doing too much of this political messaging in their content. So Iger comes out and says, look, we acknowledge it. There's too much political messaging in our content, or there's too much messaging in general in our content. We need to get back to the roots of what Disney is, which is entertaining. You know, the primary goal is the entertainment first. Not completely leaving out good, positive, hopeful messages, but we need to lead with entertainment first. I don't know. Everyone's been asking for that, or a lot of people have. And now all of a sudden he says it, and it's like people are like, "Oh, look at this jerk. What's he talking about?" It's like, what do you guys want? What are your take on this, George?
Yeah, I think this is again the typical, the typical magic hole. You know, it's like no matter which way you look at it, it's like if you say one thing, it's bad. Okay, you go the other route, it's still bad. There's like never no common ground. It's like you're always you're digging yourself into that hole. And the one thing that I will say, based off of how Iger worded it, the only thing that I would say is I understand what he means about the messaging, but at the same time, you still want to have that infused good quality message behind the story with the entertainment. It's like when you go back and watch all these great movies, there are still messages within the story. I didn't have a problem with. My issue is when they're like ramming it down your throat. It's like getting people to say, "Oh, look, the main character, you know, you have to go, it's this. I don't have to be told what the main character's ethnic background is, or the story of where they come from. Let the story tell that. Just let it flow. Just, have, great main lead ethnic characters and ethnic backgrounds. That's great. Mm-hmm. That's perfect. But it's the execution of how you utilize that story to where it's cohesive.
Wait, and I want to bring this tweet up from actually friend of the channel, Josh from Den of Nerds. Really cool guy. I am addicted to Josh's live streams, If you're into Marvel, especially and Star Wars and all that nerdy stuff, he is the guy. Check him out on YouTube. But he's also a great follow on Twitter. Really smart dude. But he says here the entertainment industry putting entertainment first should not be controversial. However, some people need it to be so they can continue to make money off outrage. We've talked a lot about this on the channel. Okay, and I want to make it very clear. It's a 100% okay to critique the Walt Disney Company. We critique it all the time. But there is an element out there that it's outrage farming. It's sort of like keeping this outrage machine kind of hot because it benefits people, financially. And Josh touches upon that. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this whole thing, Slimer, about the messaging and all this other stuff?
I think actions speak louder than words. I do want to preface my statement with that, and I think at this point, the Disney company, like George says, they have to realize that there's nothing that they can say that's not going to be weaponized against them. So knowing that, I would change my entire PR strategy to be one of media silence. If Bob Iger is not going to say anything that's going to give the shareholders market confidence, if he's not going to say anything to improve or to guarantee predictability, if he's not going to say anything that is fundamentally going to say, hey, look, we're going to market proof this company, and this is how we're going to do it, and here's our plan. If it's not that, then stop talking. There's nothing to say. Let every other division of the company speak for itself. Let me give you a perfect example. Couple days ago, I guess a week ago now, WDI had released a video of Figment at Imagineering. Okay, perfect. Then Josh comes the next day or 2 days later, and he starts talking about possibilities, and he starts going into his entire Blue Sky rant. That little bit completely undermines that positive energy, potential momentum that WDI had established by just putting together a cute little video, posting on social media, and creating this, this narrative that there's this chance that, Imagination with Figment might be getting an upgrade at Epcot. Okay. Mm-hmm. Then the same thing happens again with Walt Disney News statue at Epcot. They do the town hall meeting, take a big shit on that. Okay. And then today again, the Hatbox Ghost just got released over at WDW at the Magic Kingdom in Walt Disney World. But we can't focus on it. We can't talk about it. The Disney company can't create any momentum with things they're actually doing that people want and people want to enjoy, and things that are actually going to put the company in a good light and create a lot of that and rebuild that consumer trust. If Iger and Josh keep running their mouths because they have big egos, somebody needs to take them to the side and say, shut up, stop talking. The only thing you should be doing is stand, like, all you need to do is go put on a hard hat, grab a shovel, and go take pictures with the Imagineers doing construction. Go smile. Say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we're doing at WDI. That's it. Do photo. Just do photo ops. Smile for the camera. Kiss the baby. But other than that, just because they would have so. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna wrap with this, and I'll just had they not said anything, like, just imagine for a second if the last 2 weeks had gone without them saying anything at all. Like, it would have been a nice momentum for them to build off of, with all the new things coming to the parks, and the theaters aren't doing great, but shoot, like, let everybody else try to build some momentum for the company. It's not just the Josh and Bob show here.
Well, and that's what is so frustrating. And it started showing that it was just Josh tomorrow, but lately it's showing with Bob Iger as well, which I think a lot of people aren't really used to him doing that, where he was, he would still get stuff done. And now it's just a lot of talk, where, as to your point, Slimer, where Iger quoted, to run a theme park entertainment business, you have to invest. Okay. And then you have Damaro over there saying, oh, we have enough land over at the Disneyland Resort for a third park. Great. let's fucking do it. Let's get it rolling here. Like, what is, again, and I get it because of with Disneyland Forward, they have to wait for the vote and everything. Fine. I can understand that you have to wait. But then, as you said, Slimer, then don't say anything. Wait for the moment and then just deal with it in time. We don't need this little tapping and jabbing of nitpicking of like what is it. Just don't say nothing at all. If nothing is being done and nothing's being produced, then shut the hell up.
Yeah, no, 100%. And here, to Universal's credit, I'm going to give Universal some props right now. How many times do you see Brian Roberts, Comcast Universal CEO, out there blabbering? Exactly.
Zero
Slimer.
times.
Zero
times.
You don't see him out there jibber jabbering like this is constantly. Come on, Bob Iger, like, get it together, run a tighter ship, too much talk.
You know what Universal Orlando Resorts posted on Twitter today?
What?
Rides and stuff. That's it. That's brilliant. That's it. That's brilliant.
Yeah. No,
I mean, if you're a company that in their SEC, the SEC filing, they basically said, in a roundabout kind of way, that we no longer have brand confidence with our consumers. Okay, so wouldn't you try to make yourself the most likable company? Like, wouldn't that be your number one objective? If the consumer base no longer trusts you as a company with their products, then wouldn't you try new PR strategies and new marketing strategies? Wouldn't you do a complete overhaul to try to strengthen or try to gain back that that consumer business relationship? Because by Bob going around and Josh going around and toting every single thing and saying everything that comes to their mouths, they're not doing that. Take a page out of Wendy's marketing campaign that they implemented back in like 2018, 2019. They started that human social media strategy where all they basically do is just, say snarky stuff online and dig at people on Twitter that dig at them because, their fries came out cold and their revenue went up 30% in a year. I mean, wow. Yeah, I mean, Universal Studios has adopted it and it works for them.
Yeah.
They need to do something. Like somebody needs to put a muzzle on these guys. But the thing is who's going to do it?
Yeah, no, 100% Slimer. They're talking too much and they're saying nothing. That's the thing too. Like it's nothing. Like Daddy Josh.
And this is why, and I know we're coming up to that article now, but this is where, and I forget who I was talking. It might have been you, Slimer. I forget who I was talking to, either in the DMs or on X, where Iger is going to have to sooner or later put the money where his mouth is, because you can only talk for so long. And if the main goal is to not get Peltz on a seat on the board, you can't. There's so many times that you could say, yep, we're going to do it. We'll just say what Peltz wants to hear and he'll back off. That only can happen so many times to when then Peltz is going to say, you know what, fuck this shit. I'm going to go for the seat anyway because nothing is still getting done. Right. So if Iger really doesn't want Peltz to have a seat,
you got to get together.
He has to make moves. He has to get his teams together and say, you guys got to do this. You got to lead this team to do this. There has to be something that well-oiled machine has to be turned on and start moving. Otherwise, if Peltz gets a seat, Iger is only to blame himself.
Well, and not only is Peltz is asking for two seats.
2 seats.
And I've even heard he might even want to go as far as 3 seats. Now, Disney today announced that the board changed the rules, made it a little more complicated to add board members. That's very telling. They also reinstated the dividends. That's also very telling. But it shows you how worried they are about Peltz. Right. This was a move of, in my opinion, kind of desperation. This is like that Hail Mary kind of thing where they're like, man, we gotta get the dividend out there. We gotta complicate the approval process for more board members. They're worried about it. We're absolutely worried about it, which brings us to go ahead, George.
Really quick, yeah. So that way you can do this.
Yeah.
And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I will keep on saying it. If they want to make the biggest move where you have the social medias, you have the diehard Disney fans, you have their families, you have the normies, you have coverage far beyond to the eye can see, the best way to get shit rolling, and they better, and I swear to God, they better do it, or otherwise I'm going to Italiano bitch slap them upside the head, that they better utilize, and not physically, folks, I'm not a violent person, but they better utilize the D23 Expo. You're going to have all these people all together in one room. They're going to have to, and again, I'm not talking about this what if, shoulda, coulda, woulda bullshit. I'm talking about straight on, this is greenlit.
Yeah.
Here's a roundabout time frame of when it's going to open.
Boom.
We start breaking ground in spring or fall, whatever.
They got to do stuff, man. They got to do stuff. So this is the next article. It says Disney facing activist investor pressure, adds 2 more board members. So Disney added 2 more board members today, I believe this was. James Gorman of Morgan Stanley. He's the chief executive at Morgan Stanley, which is interesting. They picked him because he's the he's with Morgan Stanley, who is also, I believe, the financial firm that's determining the price tag, the third party for Hulu.
That's correct.
Is that true, Slimer?
That's correct.
That's an interesting move. That's not a mistake. That's for sure. And then Jeremy Darroch, who ran the British TV company Sky, who will join early next year. Now, the Sky pick is also interesting because Comcast bought Sky, Universal Comcast. They own Sky now around the same time that Disney bought Fox. Very, very interesting stuff. So let me just read this first line real quick to kind of set the table. We'll kind of go from there. It says here, the Walt Disney Company, bracing for a second proxy battle with activist investor Nelson Peltz, reinforced its board on Wednesday. James Gorman, Morgan Stanley's chief executive, and Jeremy Darroch, who formerly ran Sky, a British television company, will join Disney's board early next year, according to a securities filing. Quote, their appointments reflect Disney's commitment to a strong board focused on the long-term performance of the company, strategic growth initiatives, the succession planning process, and increasing shareholder value, end quote, Disney says in a statement. So, Slimer, I'll start with you on this one, brother. What are your thoughts on this? This is kind of juicy, dude.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely in response to the takeover that Nelson's trying to initiate with Perlmutter. But one thing that I like to add to that is I believe that the Disney Channel was on Sky in the United Kingdom. So there is a former history with the Disney company and Sky as well. Now, what they're looking to get out of these guys, I really have no idea. I mean, there is a possibility that Iger might be eyeballing one or both of these guys to take over when he leaves in 2026.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, I was actually just going to touch upon that, Slimer. I'm glad you brought that up because it's very telling how Iger is kind of scrambling to grabbing all these guys from these different companies, but yet have a history with the company or what have you, or have a personal history with him or what have you. This even goes back to Stags and
Kevin Meyer.
Kevin Meyer.
So I feel like when he did make that announcement of saying, you know what, regardless, when my contract is up in 2026, I'm done. In a way, I mean, anything can happen, but I really truly think Iger is cooked. I think he's done. I personally feel like that he didn't really know what kind of a mess he was coming back in to, of the mess that he actually started, and thought that maybe, he's the golden boy. He can, do no wrong, just like with one touch, like with King Midas, turn everything to gold. Well, guess what? That wasn't the case.
Yeah.
He is actually working. And honestly, really, in a way, if you actually look at Iger, you could see how much it aged him. And I'm not saying that as a crack joke. I mean, I'm just saying, like, with all the stress and everything, it puts so much pressure on you.
I think he wasn't expecting to come back. And I think coming back to a bigger mess than he expected, I just think he's tired.
Yeah.
I think,
and honestly, I would be too. I would be too. And it's like, but in order for it to, and I get it, there's probably so much red and yellow tape and so much logistics that we don't even know that goes behind it, that he could be looking at us saying, it's easier said than done. And we don't expect it to be overnight or a click of a finger, but you have to start somewhere.
Right.
Walt Disney didn't get where he was and what the company became by just sitting back and saying, well, maybe it'll happen one day. It's like he went out and did what he had to do. And again,
Right.
and I know that I'm going way off topic, but that's even just what the movie Wish is about. It's like you can't rely on somebody else. They made a movie on it. And it's like if you believe in your product, you got to do what you just produced.
Yeah, and one thing that I think Disney
Mhm.
should really look into, and they haven't had that president position for a long time. The president of the Walt Disney Company, they got rid of it.
Yeah.
I would look in if I was Disney, if I was Bob Iger, I would look into reinstating that and having like kind of like a right hand person, to kind of like a president role to kind of like help you guide this ship right now.
And they need a dual CEO type of thing, like as we talked about it many times, that 50-50 partnership. It worked with Walton Roy, it worked for the very beginning with Eisner and Wells. I just think that the Walt Disney Company is it is, I don't think it's a massive multi-billion-dollar corporation. To just put that all on one person's shoulders to handle everything, I
Mhm.
think, to balance it out, you need a creative and you need a business.
Yeah. It's just proven
Mhm.
over and over again. That's how the company was founded with Walter Roy. You've had Michael Eisner and Frank Wells. Slimer, what are your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, so this is from the Hollywood Reporter. This was actually written by Alex Werpin, so credit to them. But it says here the studio conglomerate cited Gorman's experience with Morgan Stanley's acquisition of E-Trade in 2020 to note the exec will, quote, provide key perspectives as Disney leverages technology to advance its strategy, end quote. And Duroc's work transitioning Sky from linear TV to multi-platform was touted in relation to Disney's own efforts to grow its direct-to-consumer streaming business. Goes on to say both will be up for election, annual meeting. And then here it says, quote, James and Jeremy are both widely respected leaders in their industries, and their expertise will complement the talents and experience of the Disney board as we continue to focus on delivering for consumer shareholders alike, end quote, said Mark Parker, chairman of the Disney board. Then he goes on to say, in the 14 years that James has been CEO of Morgan Stanley, he has overseen a strategic transformation of the institution, delivered significant shareholder value, and was integral to Morgan Stanley's well-managed succession process over the year, end quote. This is again Parker. And then Jeremy brings extensive leadership in the international media business. And during his tenure at Sky, he led Sky's successful transition from a linear satellite broadcaster to one of Europe's largest multi-platform TV providers, end quote. So, I mean, one way to look at this, I mean, if you really want to put this in the simplest terms possible, perhaps an oversimplification is you got one guy, this money guy, and you got one guy that's very experienced at managing conglomerates such as Disney and transforming linear satellite broadcasting into multi-platform providers, which is exactly what Disney just so happens to be doing. And
Right.
so they feel like these people are going to bring in a level of expertise that they currently don't have, and that they're going to be assets moving forward. And they could be, these two could be your two new guys. I mean, Iger says that um, the secession process is very robust right now. I would think that if I were looking for a CEO or two CEOs, I want them to start working in the company at least 2 years prior to making a decision. I mean, so these could very well be the two new guys, or one of them could be the new guy,
Yeah.
or his replacement. So we'll see. I
And I
think
think,
that.
and not to interrupt you, but I even think that
Mhm.
the new CFO, the incoming CFO, Hugh Johnston, I think
Right.
he's a prime candidate for CEO. I mean, he did a phenomenal job over
Yep.
there at Pepsi, really well respected. Pepsi's even I didn't even know this until I kind of dove into the Hugh Johnston resume, so to speak. I didn't even know this, but Pepsi's even bigger than Disney, surprisingly.
Pepsi is bigger than Disney, and this actually ties into Bob Iger's statement when he said that the reason that movies have been out of budget lately, and a lot of the budgets are really due to COVID. I mean, every studio has experienced inflated budgets over COVID because there had been so many pauses and stop and goes during production, and that it just most of the movies ended up being 2 to 3 times more expensive than they would typically cost, and then you have inflation in addition to that. But I mean, if you really want to have an executive there that is going to be able to manage the finances tightly and get these studios under budget, you're gonna want one of these guys over there, because they're not going to put up with any crap.
And it's great that in a way, to Iger's credit, he's kind of getting his ducks lined up in a row before 2026. So you have
Right.
multiple choices that could be running for CEO, because you just don't want to just have to rely on one person. Because again, during Iger's final end game, if you will, he might be looking for two people to replace him, so they don't have to go through the hell that he did. To make the decision to pass it along to Chapek and then reclaim it back. I think when you just have one person that's running a multi-billion corporation, it's just, especially for Disney, because there's so many umbrellas under the Disney name. It's not just one thing. It's you're running a studio, you're running theme parks, you're running ESPN essentially. Like, I know you have other people like working the division, but you're the top tier person that has to be looking at all this streaming and everything. So it's like it's too much.
Yeah,
it's too much for one person.
It's hard to be passionate about the Disney brand, but then also have laser like focus on all these other subsidiaries which they've acquired over the past decade. Because what does it mean to be passionate about the Disney brand when you're running a multi conglomerate? They own all the properties they have. They have so many subsidiaries. It's absolutely ridiculous. So what does it mean to be passionate? And what's good for the goose is not necessarily goose for the gander, right? So what's good for ESPN is not going to be good for the parks. And so you're going to need people that are going to specialize in each one of these divisions, and then lean on these people to make the best decisions based off of their experience, based off of their knowledge, based off of their teams, and their passion and their drive to make those individual divisions rise to the top. The person at the top at this point, I would say, at best, is probably going to be a figurehead. I mean, Bob Iger came in and he did a lot of acquisitions. That's great. But I don't think those acquisitions came out of a place of passion, like the way that, Michael Eisner cared about Disney, or the way, obviously Walt Disney, nobody cared about Disney more than Walt. But I don't think Bob Iger actually had that level of passion. I think that he can present himself as having that level of passion because he's really good at talking in front of the camera, and he's he knows how to sell it. But I think that they're going to need someone that, like you said, OG, can really lean on the people within the company to make that run, as opposed to trying to marionette the entire time, which is what we're seeing exactly right now with Bob. And he's just spread too thin.
The one thing that I could really appreciate about Michael Eisner, and I know a lot of people have strong feelings for him, especially negative ones during his end term as CEO, but it is what it is. But the way that Michael was, he was very good as a business person, as a creative. He could don on a suit and tie, but yet he can go out in the public eye, walk amongst the fans and the people wearing a Mickey t-shirt and shorts, while wearing mouse ears, eating popcorn, walking down Main Street.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's like that shows you as human. It doesn't make you any less of being, whether or not you are a good CEO of this company or not, but it just shows your human side, your likability, that you can get down to a person's level and understand what you are running. It's so easy to sit in your leather chair behind a desk all day saying, oh yeah, well, we take pride in what we do and yada, yada, yada. Okay, well, when was the last time you actually walked in the parks? When was the last time you actually watched a movie that you were affiliated within the company? It's like oh yeah, it's been years. Well, okay, well, sometimes you have to watch or do kind of get your hands dirty a little bit to really know the product you're pushing. That's like me.
Right.
I know shit about, I don't know, like, I'll just give an example, like vacuums. But if I'm just going to say, but I'm going to go and be a vacuum salesman and say, oh yeah, well, I'm going to tell you all about these vacuums. Well, when was the last time that you had this model? Oh, I never had this model before, but it's great. It's like,
right. Yeah.
It's easier to go ahead, brother.
Oh no, go ahead. No, absolutely.
What I was going to say was, it's easier to be a food critic than to actually be the chef, And, the other thing about Michael Eisner too, is he really took it to heart the importance of making that human connection with the audience. I mean, he did Wonderful World of Disney. He was there to actually do the show. He did the intro, he did the outro. That's something that we haven't seen since the 1990s. And if you want to, if you want to build that relationship again, or build that trust back with the audience, as they stated in their SEC filing, they no longer have that brand loyalty. Then you got to do whatever it takes. If it means you embarrassing yourself and being on the Wonderful World of Disney every Saturday, then that's what it takes to do it. I saw Michael Eisner in Walt Disney World several times back in the 90s. He would just randomly show up. And the way that it works is all of a sudden you see guys with, suits and sunglasses, multiple of them. And then all of a sudden it turns out there's more of them than the actual people in the park. And holy shit, there goes Michael Eisner. Sometimes he'd be with Hillary Clinton. Sometimes he'd be with, somebody else within his board. Sometimes he might just be with, people that work in the park. But he was there, and he was on the Wonderful World of Disney. You know what I mean? And sure, once all the people around him started dying, sure. But you can't judge him based off of his last game. You can't discount the entire time that he was there. So
no, 100%.
If that's what Iger has to do, then that's what Iger has to do, man. Do the dog and pony show, because he ain't doing it.
No, 100%. I have a question for you guys. Before we move to our next topic, we're going to go parks in a minute, but I want to ask you both this question. Okay, George, I'll start with you. Michael Eisner, since we're on the topic of Michael Eisner, how would you feel? Because obviously he's not going to ever be CEO again. He can't, he's too old, I think.
Yeah.
But how would you feel about them putting Michael Eisner on the board?
That would be, I would have no problem with that whatsoever.
Yeah.
I actually think that would be a great opportunity, not just for Eisner, but I think it would be a great opportunity for the Walt Disney Company, because you then have somebody who had worked in the company that had their shoes filled as CEO. So what better way to give him a seat on the board than someone that knows the product, that knows the company, knows the way around of how to run it. That's how you would take somebody to be on the board, because we stressed about this how many times. Like, sometimes it's best maybe to look outside of the company to have someone run it. Well, Eisner was there, and so essentially too, nobody is qualified. Technically, nobody is actually qualified to be CEO unless they actually had done it before. If you really think of it in that
like
manner.
Running another company or whatever.
So if you take, again, and this was, I think, Chapek's issue, he was good with consumers, he did in that sense. But then when you take a consumer person and you're going to have him running the parks, and then you're going to have him running the parks to then running the whole damn show, you're setting him up for failure. And that's not just for Chapek, that's anybody. The only way that anybody is ever having the credibility of being a CEO is they were a CEO before.
Well, and experience matters. It would be like having like the president of the United States, right? Like, for example, like Joe Biden, right? And having him kind of bring in, like, say, Barack Obama. He's another Democrat. Bring in Barack Obama as part of your inner circle. Like, that would be a smart move. You have a former president, knows what he's doing on your team. It would be the same idea with Michael Eisner.
Yes.
You bring him on the board,
Yeah, so to your question, OG, absolutely. I think, honestly, if anyone deserved a seat on the board that can drive the whole company into the direction that it needs to go, I think to have Michael Eisner on the team, as far as in the board goes, I think that would be a benefit.
Well, you appease Wall Street, right? Because you have a familiar face in there, so they like the stability of that. You also kind of also infuse some trust and goodwill to your fan base, because I think Michael Eisner, even though the last 10 years were kind of rocky, fans are still pretty nostalgic over Michael Eisner. But what are your thoughts overall, Slimer? Put Michael Eisner on the board?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, name somebody that's more qualified to be an executive consultant for the Walt Disney Company that's actually alive right now.
Me.
Well,
but in all seriousness, George. Yeah. But in all seriousness, George. No, but there is nobody more qualified to be an executive consultant for the Walt Disney Company. And you're absolutely right. I mean, just about the last few years, I mean, you can fault the guy, but honestly, I don't. I mean, he leaned on a lot of people. And that's the thing about Bob or Michael, is he leaned on the people around him to run that company. And he knew what his role was, and he didn't try to subsume any roles that he wasn't an expert in. At least I don't think so. But he knew how to build relationship with the consumers, and a lot of the goodwill and a lot of the trust in the brand that Bob Iger and Bob Chapek inherited were because of Michael Eisner.
it's true.
I would say all of it. I mean, except for Walt.
Do you fellas think that there was a point of time where Iger or the board approached Eisner? Do you think that it was already done, but he might have declined?
No, I think their egos are too big.
I think so too. I'm with you on that, Slimer. I think their egos are too big, and it not just Bob Iger. I think these people in general, they just have the inflated ego, and I think that to bring a former CEO on would bruise that precious ego, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I think it would be the best thing for the company, but unfortunately, maybe not the best thing for Bob Iger, sadly. So,
but I'm also looking at it in the sense because he also asked, I mean, not as a high end, but he still asked Meyer and Stagg, so they were still kind of, so that can kind of ding Iger's ego too, but yet he still,
Sure.
I wonder if now at this point, Iger is kind of like on that full steam ahead because he really wants to get the hell out by 2026. But at the same time, he doesn't want to make that same mistake that he did with Chapek. So he has to really watch what he's doing as far as kind of gathering up the right people.
And most importantly, he needs to watch what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's the thing. That is the key, Slimer. You're right. It's been more even with Daddy Josh. Most of these problems are PR related more than anything.
Yeah.
It's PR related. I mean, there is good stuff going on at the Walt Disney Company. We're going to talk about some good stuff right now. There's good stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of good news this week. The dividends, all the stuff, the Epcot stuff, a lot of great stuff. It's the talking and the town hall was a perfect example of just a PR mess that took all the air out of the room. I mean, you go there, you promise a town hall with the employees. Okay. A town hall heavily implies that it's a back and forth. It's not an interview. If Bob Iger just wanted to get up there and just do talking points, he might as well just had that David Murr guy from ABC just interview him.
And as you said it, OG, no Q&A. It was
that's what I was getting to. Like the no Q&A is like what's the point of the town hall if you don't have the Q&A? The question and answer part is the point of a town hall. And here's the thing too, when you have this whole message and that whole town hall about we're optimistic about the future of the company, and then you tell everybody, but we're going to take no questions. You completely you completely crap all over your optimistic narrative. Because no questions in my opinion, optically is the opposite of optimistic. If you're optimistic, you want questions. You want those questions. When they said no questions, you don't look so optimistic, Bob, and that's not good. And honestly, I am optimistic about the Walt Disney Company's future. I've been saying that. It's going through a rough patch. It's going to be fine. But Bob, that was not a good move, man. Optically, that just did not look good. It was terrible.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And I think that example it's really telling that they don't have a handler. They don't have a PR handler. And just like a lot of the celebrities have PR handlers, these people have gotten to the point where they're so big and they're so popular. They might not think so, but they also need PR handlers, man. The Disney Company is a movie, okay? They're there to promote it. And if they say the wrong thing, then nobody's going to go to watch the movie. Nobody's going to buy into the product. And right now, they're saying all the wrong things. I mean, they're just as bad as Rachel Zegler is right now.
I know.
Well, and it's like, and OG, you had mentioned about Iger's original PR handler that she never came back.
Right, that Xenia. I think her name is Xenia. So that's an interesting thing. I'm glad you brought that up, George, because Xenia was like Iger's PR lady for a long, long time. She left when Iger left the first time, and she never returned. And I think that the main PR person now is still Chapek's person, which is Christina Shockey, which is a former, I think, Hillary Clinton person. She's a Democratic, I don't know, strategist or so. I don't know. But she worked with like Hillary Clinton and all those folks. I think she's still the one. Maybe, look, we all say Bob Iger is good, with smoozing and all that stuff. Maybe it was that Xenia the whole time. Maybe she's the puppet master behind his success.
I'm starting to believe you, brother. And honestly, she's not doing that great of a job either. I mean, because Hillary's come out and she's stumbled on her words many a time. She's let her ego and her frustrations. I mean, Donald Trump just pressed her buttons whatever he wanted to, and like at will. But they need somebody that basically, like that whole town hall meeting, man, given that it was just right after Thanksgiving, we're coming into the holiday season.
It was useless.
Like I told you, the DMs, man, if they wanted to do something, like they really felt like, they wouldn't have been able to go to sleep that night if they didn't do or say something, then all they should have done was gone to Disneyland, ride into the train with some railroad conductor hats and hand out checks and hand out gifts to the cast members. Hey, look, we're not here to talk. We're here to spread goodwill. We're going to be here for the day. We're going to be talking and hanging out with cast members. That's it. Put on a show for the camera. That's all you got to do. What are you guys here doing? We're just spreading goodwill. That's it. Go watch the Wish movie. Just came out. We just want everybody to have a good time. We're going to be here hanging out with the people at the parks. Done.
That's perfect, man. I'm telling you, that would go a long way. A long, long way with morale and everything. And even for optics for fans like us to see that, you're like, oh, okay. That's great. That's great. And this stuff, it's not rocket science. I don't know why Disney is having such a hard time figuring it out. It's not that hard.
It's not, dude.
It's crazy.
We have to consider this too. They have degrees, so it's like that's their mentality. It's like, oh well, we have the degree of knowing of what we're doing because we've been working at this for how fucking long. But it's like, well, yeah, but sometimes you don't need, as you said, OG, rocket science of a big degree of knowing. It's just basic common sense.
Yeah, no,
it's
100%.
Just get down to a normal level of a person and really hear what we have to say. Because honestly, sometimes we know what we're talking more about than the people running the shit.
Exactly. I hope people from Disney watch our show. I mean, I don't know if they do or not, but I hope they do. And I mean, we're always constructive here on OG55. I hope they take some of the stuff we say and at least listen and maybe apply it because I don't know.
Loosen up that tie. Unbutton your shirt. Show a little chest hair. Do something. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, OG. Before we go to this next topic, I mean, going back to building goodwill and going back to building up morale. I mean, how many times was Walt in Main Street? How many times did he attend the parades? How many times was he out there, shaking hands? Every single day, dude. Every single day that guy was in Disneyland. He stayed overnight.
Slept there.
Yeah.
He slept there. So, if you want an example of what it's going to take, like honestly, Iger, like Robert, okay, Robert, I'm your mom. I'm calling you by your first real name because you are in trouble. You're going to have to go to the parks and you're going to have to sleep there and you're going to have to meet and greet everybody until you get shit right. Because that's exactly what people want. People want you to be there to make shit right. Well, what's it going to take? I don't know. Go to Main Street USA every freaking day if you have to. And if you can't do it, then make Josh go do it. You know what I mean? Because but if you guys are just going to sit on your thrones, pointing your finger and saying, well, the company's doing wrong because of this and that and the other, it's not going to do it, man.
And really quick, if I could add on to what you just said, Slimer, and the fact is that Josh does go into the parks, but he goes into the parks for the main focus. It's on him for a selfie, for this, for that. No, go into the parks for a purpose of what your job is supposed to be. And stop worrying about taking the selfies just so you could prove to say, oh, I'm here at Disneyland or I'm at Walt Disney World. It's ridiculous.
He's like an Amazon delivery guy. He takes a picture of the package to have proof that he actually delivered it.
Yeah, exactly. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. Fascinating discussion, fellas. But now we're going to pivot to this Walt statue over at Epcot. Now, here's a picture of it. It's interesting stuff.
Looks amazing. I'm sorry. I know this guy had fucking heat over the thing, but I love this.
Well, it did get heat. Well, it's funny. I don't even take the heat seriously anymore because everything Disney does gets heat. It's to the point now where if the Disney company found a cure, if Imagineering like found a way to cure cancer, fans would be like, "Oh, see, they don't like AIDS patients." That's kind of where we're at this point with people. It's like the Disney hate train is like ridiculous right now. I mean, it's really bad. But I love the statue. I absolutely love it. And you can see right behind them, it's beautiful. And you can see right behind them, like right in here.
Oh, gee, I'm sorry. That was just fucking genius right there. I'm sorry.
Right. I mean, it's true though. That's kind of where we're at right now.
It is. It's true. It really is. But honestly, even the way that this picture was taken, like the lighting, like him sitting on the bench, Spaceship Earth behind him. I'm sorry. That looks great.
Oh, it looks great. Yeah, and then the pattern behind is the map of Epcot. You can see the top of the map.
And I was at the D23 Expo when they first showcased this statue, and based on what the photos look now, I am very curious to see what this looks like in person. But the statue that I saw when they had on display on the Expo showroom floor, it didn't look so hot. It didn't look too great. I mean, it didn't look like him at all. The statue was kind of wonky. It actually seems like now they actually kind of touched it up and fixed it to where it actually looks like him. And I wonder if that's what took the extra time to have this statue installed.
It might be. It actually might be what happened here. No, it looks great. And actually, a lot of people, friend of the channel, we like Braden. He's cool. But he didn't like how the Walt statue was kind of off center. Right, it's a little bit more to the left on that long bench. I don't mind that. I think it adds an element of a little bit more of an organic feel. If you had the statue right in the middle, it would feel a little weird.
It feels like it's staged, and actually that kind of goes back to what we discussed when you have the partner statue. You have Walt and Mickey. They're center in front of the bed of flowers, like up on like a type of pedestal type thing, which is okay. But Walt never liked being like treated like a god, so to speak. He always loved being done to the eye of his fans, his people, and this is what this is. And if he sat down on a bench, I couldn't see Walt taking out a fucking measuring tape and going, okay, let me see where the dead center of the bench is, so I could sit down. It's like, no, he's gonna just sit down wherever there's a seat.
Well, and that's why, I mean, I know it's a statue and everyone knows it's a statue, but it just feels a little more organic that it's a little bit off to the left and not just a perfect dead center symmetrical thing. I don't know. I dig it a whole lot more. I mean, that's just my feeling on it. But what are your thoughts on that, Slimer? I mean, because, he is off center. I mean, when you look at him, he's more to the left. A lot of fans were like kind of harping on that. Does it bother you or not so much?
No, as someone that does amateur photography, follows the rule of thirds concept, which is something that you use in film, you use in photography. You never want the thing that you want to be in frame right in the center of the frame. When you put something in the center frame, the purpose of that is to evoke a completely different emotion. But with regard to actually taking pictures of families, your families are going to sit to the right of him, so the family is going to be more or less centered, next to him. But I do like the fact that he doesn't have a tie. It's kind of like, Walt's been in the park for 50 years and, he's kind of tired and maybe wants to sit down and relax for a little bit and just, and take it all in, kind of a feel, it's kind of like the statue. There's like a time lapse between the statue and the Magic Kingdom and Epcot. Like, he's the same Walt. Like, once you go from Magic Kingdom to Epcot, like, he's walked around with you. He just wants to take a seat and just kind of check things out. That's kind of the scenario that I put in my head when I looked at it. But I'm all for it. I mean, I have no complaints. Like, where people that complain about everything, like I told you, they're like the comic book fight from Simpsons, man. They just have nothing good to say. You know,
Worst-
drives me nuts.
Worst
worst
ending
comic book ever.
Well, exactly. And here's the other thing too with this, right? Because a lot of people were making the jokes that it looked like he was taking like a poop, whatever, you know. Because remember that when we first saw the statue back at the expo, that's what everyone was saying. Honestly, with this new layout with a longer bench, it doesn't give off that energy at all anymore. With the small little podium, it did, because it was more like a toilet. It could be more like a toilet, more toilet-ish, so to speak.
Yeah.
This with the long bench, you don't get that same vibe. So I think that was a smart decision. And I just absolutely love that they incorporated the map of Epcot behind him in that detail work. That's just so gorgeous, man. So
it is,
gorgeous.
man. It hit me right in the feels when I saw that. I was just like, oh, that's an Epcot map in the back, because I had just recently watched his Epcot presentation, like the whole thing. And you know, he's talking, he's like, it's gonna be called Epcot. And you know, like how he pronounces it in the movie. He's like, he pronounces it Epcot. And he goes, experimental prototype community of tomorrow. And he's like really proud of this whole concept. You could tell.
Oh,
he's like, he's got a shit it. Yeah, he's got a shit eating grin from ear to ear. He can't wait to tell you about it. And you're there to listen. You're just like, oh yeah, tell me about the experimental prototype city. And so the fact that they included it in this just really goes to show that the people that were responsible for the designing this whole thing, they really are fans. Like, there's no doubt about it.
And what a great way to honor him and everything, to open up this area along with World Celebration on his birthday, December 5th. So I mean, that's just perfect.
And I want to say something too before we move on to the next topic, but I've heard the criticism or the complaint or even the concern that Walt Disney Imagineering has lost all their institutional memory. You know, they don't have that institutional memory. Everyone there is like so young, and they don't have that same like the old school, you know. I got to push back on that, man. I've seen a lot of good stuff coming out of Imagineering lately, and we're going to get to some even really good stuff with Zootopia in a little bit.
I think if their higher end would green light it and sign the checks for them to approve it, that's the problem.
That's the issue. Like we've seen Zootopia, we've seen Frozen over there in Hong Kong, even some of the stuff going on at Epcot. Like, this is beautiful. There's a lot of good happening right now with Imagineering. It's just, I think that it's, like you said, George, the money end of it and the green lighting process and things like that are kind of getting in the way, unfortunately. Now, I heard a rumor, and I don't know how true it is, but I heard a rumor, and I'm based on what we're seeing, I think it probably is true. But Imagineering is really frustrated with Josh D'Amaro, because they come up with these really great ideas. It goes through the entire pipeline, gets through the entire approval process pipeline, and then Josh refuses to sign off on it, and it dies at his desk. And it's like, and that's why we're not getting anything. And it's like, you know, at first I kind of like, well, I don't know, but now after I've been kind of seeing more and more how Daddy Josh operates, I mean, it's a rumor, but it sounds kind of like it seems like it kind of tracks.
And honestly, and I'll even extend it to that, even up to Bob Iger. It's like Iger to D'Amaro to WDI. It's like, so is Iger not approving it for D'Amaro not to approve WDI? It's like it's all lost in translation at the moment, because right now Iger is almost on the same train as D'Amaro.
I know, that's the thing. He's on the what if train too. And I was blaming. Look, to be fair, I was blaming Josh D'Amaro for the what if stuff. But honestly, at this point, I'm kind of rethinking that a little bit. Maybe it's from even above him, because you're right, George. There has been a lot of this what if coming from even Bob Iger. I mean, he didn't even really confirm. People kind of ran with it, but he didn't even really confirm Frozen 4. He said we might see that. It's a possibility, or something to that effect. Like he's doing the same stuff that Josh is doing. So it's a little weird. This new strategy they think is like so cool. Like, it's not. You're not winning. You're completely turning the fans off, Bob. You got to get Bob and Josh. You got to get off of that what if thing. And like Slimer said early on in the show, if you have nothing to say, don't say anything. Just stay quiet. Just stay quiet.
Yeah. You know, one of the oldest adages that salespeople live by, good salespeople, is under promise and overachieve. If you under promise and overachieve, you can never go wrong, because you're not setting the false expectation that you're going to get more than what you actually get. And so they violate that every single way. Now, like here we go with the Hatbox Ghost, right? Nobody knew what day it was going to come out. The only people that knew were the actual Imagineers and the cast members operating the ride. I'm sure there were some executives that knew, but they kept it hush. We wake up this morning, and here's a Hatbox Ghost. How awesome was that? Everybody rushed to Magic Kingdom to go check this out today. It bombed Twitter. It's this fantastic thing. But this is a perfect example of not talking and doing. Not talking and doing. Just deliver the product and just shut up. And that's it.
Exactly.
It's not hard.
It's not hard. You don't see Brian, like I said before, you don't see Brian Roberts, head of Comcast, doing this all day long. You don't need to do that, Bob Iger. And it's hurting you. It's not helping you at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is look, okay. So the Hatbox Ghost premiere today at the Magic Kingdom. We've had this at Disneyland, I think, since 2015. I'm glad that you guys finally have it out there in Florida. This is awesome. You guys have been waiting for this for a long, long time. I honestly, I think it looks fantastic. What are your thoughts, George?
Okay.
Are you going ball for the wall,
I'm
George?
going balls to the wall.
Oh no.
Okay, so I do agree with you Slimer. Absolutely. I'm all for the notion of not saying, just doing. Absolutely. Yeah. Just get it out there, do it. As far as the placement of the Hatbox Ghost, I'm going to try to figure out how I can put this. I'm not and I know Disney kind of explained this a little bit, but I'm not understanding the placement of the Hatbox Ghost because they are showcasing him before Madame Leota, where that's when all the ghost and the ghouls materialize. And I know Disney made like the sense where, he is not part of that notion and what have you, which I don't really have a big problem with that. It was just, I wouldn't have placed him where the hallway, where like the floating candle is. The only reason why I wouldn't is because you have these two fantastical moments where you're focusing on the hallway, but then you're going to look at the Hatbox Ghost. So it's like you have everything kind of too much at once. I would have just kind of placed him in a spot where there's not so much going on, where it's like you can just focus on him.
That's interesting.
Now again, I'm just going by this picture. And is it going to ruin my day? Is it going to ruin my experience like some people? No, absolutely not. This is not going to ruin the Haunted Mansion for me. I would have just preferred him in a different position, not by the hallway with the floating candle. But as I said, now once I go on this ride, maybe actually if I see it for myself and it's like, whoa, okay, you know what? It looks great, but just right now of the placement, not too keen on it, but I am glad that he is in Walt Disney World's Haunted Mansion. It was a long time coming.
Great point, George. It's the stuff I didn't actually consider. So fantastic points. What are your thoughts, Slimer?
I get the disagreement of the placement. Like, I totally get it. One of the fantastic things about that particular part of the ride is that the ride, the Omnimover directs you towards the hallway, and you're forced to look down the hallway and notice that there's a floating candelabra. And I remember as a kid, that used to scare the shit out of me. Like, when I was under 10 years old, I used to ride the Haunted Mansion. That was the scariest part of the ride. Now, some other places that they potentially could have put it at, there's a nice transition spot from the ballroom scene to the attic where there's nothing but a black wall for about, I don't know, a good part. I was probably about 25 feet of black wall. They probably couldn't put it there because of they probably couldn't overcome certain engineering aspects of the building in order to put it there. That's the only thing I can think of. I'm pretty sure they considered it. Yeah, of course. And then, of course, there's, the original spot, which is right as soon as you leave the attic. I haven't seen it in person. I'm going to try to go see it this Saturday, and then I'll give you guys like my actual
please do.
Experience feedback, let you know. But looking at it, it looks great. I mean,
as far as like that little that piece of where his platform or where he's standing with the backdrop and everything, it does. It looks phenomenal.
Because that's the same wallpaper that's in the hallway as soon as you pass that scene, and then notice they have the hat boxes right to the left of it. See the hat boxes right there to the left, and then the door just adds an element of dimensionality, which I think was necessary. Had they just put the hat box just in the corner there, I think that wouldn't have worked. But the fact that they have a whole door there shows that there's another entrance into the haunted mansion, which was unknown. But it's like, oh, now there's this whole other entrance here. So hopefully they create like an entire storyline with that. Like, why is he there? Why are there these hat boxes, and where did this door come from, et cetera, et cetera. I think they can do something interesting with that for the hardcore mansion fans.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's interesting. It's super interesting. Now, when did they announce this? Because I feel like this has been a long time coming. Do you guys, George, you're an Expo guy. Like, do you remember when this was announced?
That was announced. Oh, good gosh. I don't know if it was announced at one of the expos, or it might have actually been one of the Destination Ds.
Oh, okay.
But it was a good. I think it had to be before the Pandy.
Wow, that's crazy.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but anyone watching, comment down below if I'm right. Did they announce the Hatbox Ghost for Walt Disney World prior to the Pandy or after? Because I remember going to. Yeah, it would have had to be, because the next expo after the Pandy was in 2022.
Right.
And so that would have only been, so it had to be
Pre-Pandy.
It had to be 2019.
That's wild. Well, at any rate, better late than never, and I'm glad that you guys got it. I think it looks great, but I see your points, George. Absolutely, with the placement. I absolutely see your points. But it's awesome to actually see it though finally come to fruition. But now we are moving to we're flying across the other side of the planet to Hong Kong Disneyland, where
Shanghai.
Oh, I'm sorry. See, I'm. Yeah, thank you, George. Shanghai Disneyland. I said Hong Kong.
Oh,
yeah, no, Shanghai. Thank you. I appreciate it. No, yeah, Shanghai. We're going to Shanghai. Zootopia. We've reported on this a few times now. The land itself looks absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is our friend Scott Gooston here. He says, here's some new on-ride footage of Zootopia Hot Pursuit, the flagship attraction in the upcoming Zootopia land at the Shanghai Disney Resort. The land officially opens December 20th. This is pretty crazy, man. Like, it's a use of sort of like this blending of screens and physicality, very reminiscent of like a Runaway Railway or Rise of the Resistance. Some people are saying Ratatouille. I'm not seeing the Ratatouille too much, but
can I just diverge a little bit?
Yeah.
This is how I wish Mario Kart was.
Oh, that's interesting.
This is how I wanted Mario Kart to be, where rather it be just kind of where everything is just kind of floating in front of you, where it just seems like it's off balance, where it's like it's just sitting in midair and you don't even really know what you're shooting at. If they wanted to have that aspect where you're kind of like shooting for coins or what have you, I think it would have been really cool to have it more of a clear of like that big kind of 4K screen and then move into actual props, which the props in Mario Kart are really cool. But the 3D part is where it gets lost for me.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of things floating through walls and stuff like that. And I made a tweet today saying I love Mario Kart. I do love that ride, but you're right, George. It's not a perfect ride.
Yeah. If it would have been like this, oh man, I'd be on that. I'd be on that thing every single freaking time. This looks phenomenal.
Well, yeah, and I think this is I think it was a smart decision by Disney to make it a trackless ride, because that's one thing with Mario Kart. It's a track. So this feels like an actual car. There's no track, I think I think this ride system makes total sense. But I don't know, man. I think this looks really, really awesome. I would love to have Zootopia and this ride at, I would say like California Adventure, but you don't necessarily do the canon Zootopia that you see in the movie. You can do a Los Angeles that's sort of Zootopatized. So it is tied to California a little bit. Go ahead, George. I'm sorry, brother.
Zootopatized. I love that. That's great.
Right?
That's great.
Zootopatized, man.
I'm sorry. We were so close. I thought we had it. We were getting it in Florida for Animal Kingdom. When Braden kind of leaked it, where it was like, yeah, we're getting Zootopia. in Animal Kingdom, but not what you guys think. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, are we getting something more, bigger, better than what they're getting in Shanghai? No, we're getting a freaking 3D, 4D show in the place of It's Tough to Be a Bug in the Tree of Life. It's like, oh man, I would have now seeing what this land is and what this ride is. I would give my left arm to have that in freaking Animal Kingdom.
When you said I would give my left, you went in a completely different direction than I thought you would go with that one, George.
Yeah, George, you behaving tonight, man?
Yeah, man.
I'm trying.
Pretty wild. What are your thoughts on this, Slime? Are you into this, man, or not your thing, or where you stand, brother?
I'm really into this. And what's funny is I was not an advocate for Zootopia coming to the Animal Kingdom because I felt like aesthetically it was really out of place. You had the bold colors, you had the the replication of an animated city. They were going really hard with keeping the land and the characters and in like a one-to-one representation of how they looked on screen. But I'll tell you, that video they released yesterday completely changed my position on this. Zootopia looks awesome, and it really goes to show you when Imagineers have a blank check, they can pretty much do
exactly. See, this is the same.
Want.
This is the same company, the same teams that are still working in the domestic parks. It's just for the international parks, they're willing to say, you know what? Yeah, here's the checks. Go do it.
They're split. They're split in the cost. So Disney's only paying half of what it would cost to do it here domestically. But then, I mean, like, look at the actual land itself. They've incorporated screens to add an element of kineticism, which doesn't even exist in Galaxy's Edge. Like Galaxy's Edge is cool because they incorporated surround sound to simulate spaceships flying over you, and that's one of those things that when you first experienced it in Galaxy's Edge, it was like, whoa, like do they have freaking like Dolby Atmos surround sound systems in here to simulate spaceships coming in and out of port? I was like, that's cool, but it was still very static. Like, there's nothing moving there other than like characters and robots. But here, they're using screen technology and projection technology to simulate the characters other than actual people in costumes. And it's like, holy shit, man. Like, this thing is kinetic as fuck, dude. It makes everything else obsolete. It makes Wizarding World obsolete.
Can I ask
Galaxy's Edge obsolete?
That's really going balls to the wall there.
I think so. I mean, because everything is stationary in those worlds, man. Like, you have some things moving in the top windows.
Oh no! As I said, I agree with you, man. You're catching the contagious of my balls to the wall there. It's like
you're right though. The kinetic energy is through the roof.
This is a next generation land, and I don't think people the people that are criticizing it. You don't have the right to criticize it because you haven't been there. Like the people that are talking shit about the ride, you haven't rode the ride.
Now, I have a spicy question for you both. That's regards to Zootopia and like what's in the sense like with these international parks that they're getting these magnificent lands, these e-ticket attractions, what have you, and knowing. Okay, here comes the spicy part. Knowing how Bob Iger's connection and relationship is with these international parks. Not saying that he wants the domestic parks to fail, but it's almost like, is he putting too much of his attention in a positive way towards the international parks and not necessarily in the domestics?
I think there's a couple things going on here, George. It's a great question. A couple things going on, though, is I think that this stuff is cyclical. Whereas Disney has always kind of done this where they'll focus on one resort or a couple resorts, and then they'll let those resorts kind of like let the dust settle, and then they'll work on other resorts. Like Disney World, for example, kind of went through a lull when we were getting the $1 billion DCA stuff, right? And Disneyland kind of went through a lull when Disney World will kind of get their stuff. I think right now, from a company standpoint, strategically, they feel they need to invest heavily in these Asian and Paris parks. I think that's where they feel like their money is best spent. And plus, like Slimer said, they don't pay the full, at least in the Asian parks, they don't pay the full amount. It's split up, right? So it works out a little cheaper for them anyway. But they'll come back around to the domestic. So I think it's just cyclical. That's kind of where I'm at with it. What do you think, Slimer? Well, why is he focusing on the domestic? I mean, the international, not the domestic.
So all this money that they've invested in the international parks, they borrowed all this money when interest rates were at an all-time low during the pandemic or right before the pandemic. That's when they took out all the loans for these investments. And then, you also have to add on to that things are, when you convert the dollar, you're always going to be able to buy more than you can buy here domestically. I mean, far more. Anybody that's traveled internationally can tell you how much more you can buy, especially you go to South America, Thailand, most of the Asian countries. I mean, you can get a one-day ticket at Tokyo Disney for like $70. You know what I mean? So it's like,
my God.
you can buy so your money goes so much further over there. But they borrowed a lot of money at low interest rates, 1%, 0.5%, 2%, right? All this money has already been invested. The thing, and like you said, OG, is it is absolutely cyclical. But the reason that things aren't getting greenlit over here is if they want to invest again, I don't think they pull from their cash. That's the thing, is I don't think they pull from what's in the bank. I think they borrow and then they pay it back with interest. But interest right now has made it to where it doesn't make sense to borrow any money. So if they're going to invest anything new into the domestic parks, they're going to have to pull from, the cash on hand. And I don't think they want to do that. I think that they're totally against it. They don't have market stability. There's no market stability, actually. And yeah, I think that a lot of Josh D'Amaro saying things to almost seemingly buy time before they actually can invest again has a lot to do with their ability to borrow at low interest rates and then build whatever it is that they want at a non-depreciable cost, because right now, because of inflation, anything they build is going to depreciate so fast, much faster than it would during any time that's not during an inflationary period.
Brilliant point, Slimer. I think you're onto something with that. Absolutely. And that's actually one of the things where I think the building of Epic Universe, Universal got kind of stuck a little bit with that. Like they started building it pre-Pandy, I believe, but then they kept going during the Pandy and the supply chain shortages. The price of steel was going through the roof, all that stuff, which really bolstered, I think, the price tag for that park. This stuff comes into play, and like you said, like the interest rates and all that stuff, like a lot of as fans, we don't really think about that stuff a lot of times. We don't really consider that stuff, but that's a big part of this equation. So it makes sense. Like, hey, if Disney hasn't put shoveled the pavement yet, hadn't broke ground on this stuff yet, hey, let's wait a little bit. Let's wait till these interest rates come down or whatever. Let's wait, and then we can kind of get more bang for our buck. So that's a brilliant point, and I think you're on something with that, Slimer. Absolutely. So fascinating conversation, guys. Today was like total banger episode, like ball to the wall, George. Absolute ball to the wall. Go ahead.
It was. This was an awesome. This was an awesome. I knew this had to be a traditional Orange Grove 55 show, because it was like we had so much stacked. It was like
it's everything, dude.
Layer upon layer upon layer, and it was more than just D'Amaro's hairline trying to get that product out. I mean, it was
yeah. But, well, who am I to talk about product though, George?
Yeah, that's it. But OG, I don't know. What were your overall thoughts with? I mean, I know that you think it's phenomenal. Any kind of critiques as far as with the Zootopia?
Oh yeah, no, I'm really impressed by it. You know what I'm saying, and that's why I push back on these people that say the institutional memory at Imagineering is gone. It's not. We're seeing in real time what this group can do. This current crop of Imagineers can do. We're seeing it. Yeah. They can do great stuff.
Yeah, I don't think any reasonable, and like I said in the last time I was on, I don't think any reasonable person can just easily dismay the last 10 years of Imagineering. I think that outside of the original Imagineers who created, actual moving works of art, I'm not going to take that away. And Pirates Mansion, Tiki Room, I mean, those are all works of art. We've had the best decade of Imagineering since then, since the Raleigh Crump era. So, if they have the money, they'll make it. It's not, they haven't lost any institutional knowledge. I mean, these guys, The international parks have showed that they're on the top of their game,
Yeah.
and not just Imagineers, the cooks. I mean, look how much more creative the food is over there versus over here. Now, a lot of that has bled over the last 2 years or 3 years, so I'm really happy for that.
Which is
But
usually good for me because I like my steak rare.
You like it basically just mooing, right?
I
George?
love. Yes, I do. It's my favorite way.
bloody as hell. What is that? What is that one line in Pulp Fiction? How do you want your burger? Bloody as hell.
Burn to a crisp or bloody as hell. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
See, I'm kind of a medium well guy. I know that's like kind of blasphemous. A lot of like people are
Really?
like, wow, yeah. A lot of people don't. They're like, oh man, you're crazy, OG. No, I like it medium well. I like a little crispiness to it, almost like when the outside's kind of burnt almost a little bit. That's kind of my thing. But I don't know.
You like smash burgers?
Oh yeah, those are great. Those are great.
Yeah.
How about you? You like
Oh
them?
yeah.
Yeah. We just discovered this new place down the house. It's literally no shit 2 miles from my house, and we haven't eaten there since the 7 years I've been here. And it's called what is it? Mills Cheesesteaks, and I got a smash burger over there for Jay. That one was for you. But yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah.
Nice. Speaking of Jay, we actually have him. He actually went to Disneyland recently. Now he's out of state, so we're gonna try to pick his brain on that whole visit because he's got some juicy stuff, like with Genie Plus and all that. So that'll be a very interesting conversation. But fellas, I want to. Oh, I'm sorry, Slimer.
No, I was just gonna say I saw that he had posted something about that on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm like Jay, don't say anymore. I really want to hear the story. I gotta hear what this is, man, because he's
and we know how he goes like really in depth with stuff. So if he goes in depth with story and character arc for like movies and screenwriting, what have you, I really want to, as you said, OG, I really want to pick his brain and really hear what he has to say about the inner skeletal vision that he saw within the parks. Like that's really great.
Well, it's a different dynamic, like I'm a local, and so you're Slimmer, you're a local too. We don't we experience these places so differently than an out-of-stater like George or like Jay Shear, right? Like I go to the parks, man. I sometimes I'll go for like 3 or 4 hours. I'll have a couple drinks, have some nachos, walk around. I won't ride a damn thing. And I'll go home. It's like that's my day a lot of times. You know what I'm saying? But like if you're George and you're flying to these resorts, you're gonna get there when the park opens early. You're gonna stay for the fireworks. You're gonna see how many attractions you can get in that whole day. I mean, that was me basically at Walt Disney World when I went there about this past summer. It's just a completely different dynamic, So it's interesting. And they're both cool. It's just that one is just very different than the other. So
yeah, there's no right way to experience the parks.
Right. No, exactly. But when next time we're down there, Slimer, we got to all hang out, brother. That'd be a blast, dude.
Yeah, for sure, man. Just let me know when.
Let's do it. But I want to thank you both for coming on. I want to thank you all for watching. Comment down below with all your thoughts that we discussed today. We got Zootopia. We got the Walt statue. We got all kinds of Bob Iger stuff. He just keeps talking, but Bob Iger, right? But before we close it out, though, I want to close it out with Citrus George. I'll start with you. If you could let everybody at home know where they could find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You could find me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Disney George. You could also find me on Instagram under the Disney Italiano. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. And then we got Mr. Slimer down below. I have your Twitter there. I'm plugging your Twitter. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, so you can find me right there on Twitter. I mainly post about Ghostbusters, but I'll tell you, everybody loves Ghostbusters, so you'll love my page. I do post theme park stuff on there as well. I have multiple passions. I'm not just going to talk about theme parks all day. These guys also have other passions too. All right. If you don't think they don't have other passions, man, I got something else to tell you guys. But listen, OG George, thanks for having me on. I really appreciated it. You guys are the best. If you guys haven't checked out their Twitters, make sure you do, because that's where the action is. All right, this is the afterthought. Okay, this is just this is the brains up. The real action is on Twitter. So make sure you subscribe to these guys, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe and hit a like as well.